Thank you very much, Joe. And a great game indeed. Very, as we said, roller coaster and a little bit of a mid-break there as we were fixing up Zuna's peripherals as well. Coming into the picks and bans, Imani, we talked a little bit about the fact that it was kind of the AD comp with the scaling, and they kept picking more AD. You weren't liking it.
Oh, no, it does make me tweak a little bit, because we saw what the Caitlyn Ezreal combo can do in terms of the early game and pushing down towers, and the composition in general, it really relied on Imp's ability to outplay people on Vayne, which, to Ozone's credit, is something you can bank on, right, because Imp is an incredible Vayne player, but it's not really the best idea to create your strategy around that kind of assumption. So I really was quite shaky on their strategy here.
Just look at everything Vulcun had. They had a Shen and a TF, both with global reposition. They had Shen shield to get anybody that gets focused down. Each and every one had crowd control. Jarvan could go in, could have a piggyback Shen on top of him. TF could join you wherever. Ashe had arrow to engage. Zyra could flash roots, or just roots and then pop her ulti to knock up. They had everything they could possibly want in a team fight, and still had a hint of split push. And then compare that to what Ozone was bringing, double AD with a scaling AD. Not that much siege potential. They basically relied on Looper getting so tanky that he could survive a rotation, still catch somebody, fling somebody, and get them down.
And I think you have to hand it to Looper and Imp, because they played an amazing game. Like, they really played solid. I didn't identify any real mistakes. That Looper's teleports, they were godlike. Like, he made so many plays as Singed.
All right, and there is something we have to touch on, Jat. I'll let you hit it, and then we'll get into our replay, because they completely flow right into each other.
Yeah, I mean, at the early part in the game, there was one portion of the game where Jarvan jumped the wall and stole the dragon, and then Psycho Sid Shen was trying to teleport in, but we do have to mention that, like, the teleport failed and it did not come in. It's something that happens on Shen from time to time. After that, though, we'll get into the rest of it. Vulcun was still in the game. They lost actually a big mid-game team fight as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. They were able to pretty much come back off of that. They were able to get a few kills there, and then this replay that Crepo is going to show you here as we bring it up on your screen really shows that the global composition wasn't really a cohesive unit coming in on this.
You have to understand that Vulcun at this point in time is ahead.
Pretty big lead.
They have a lead.
Yeah, I just want to point out right now, though, that we're looking at a pretty massive CS deficit here between Vayne and Ashe, and to that degree, too, a big part of this fight becomes just that Zerker and the pickaxe compared to a completed Blade of the Ruined King.
Good for Ozone is that the limited gold they have is spread really nicely on their carries, but even then, Vulcun should be able to win a fight. So what's going to happen here is Mancloud, he will think he can catch somebody off guard. He has a backup of his team. He will try to gold card Danny. Danny will just be out of range. A cocoon will be thrown, nearly dodges, after which Mancloud will basically say, oh, well, we missed the window, that's fine, we can try again later. I'll just get this creep and move out. But then, due to bad communication, Shen is going to try an ulti, and if we roll the clip right now, we're going to see what happens. So Mancloud gives up on the gank, gets the minion, in comes Shen, total miscommunication. Mancloud turns it around, Smithy jumps in, Mana flashes out after the Jarvan ulti, then Looper comes in with teleport. Again, really solid teleport. Dandy gets focused, but flashes. And this is really important. Dandy survives on really low HP. Comes in back, Cocoon, which sets up for Ezreal ulti. And this is where the fight turns around. Imp just lifestealed up from half HP, and he's gonna clean house. Psycho Sid not tanky enough. Looper escaped already, which is pretty damn amazing if you ask me. Imp is just cleaning house right now. Vulcan's on the run. If they didn't kill him immediately, as we said before, one rotation not enough, then the chase composition from Ozone will actually pay off. And this is what swung the game back into Ozone's favor.
Yeah, and it's one of the huge things to mention, too, about Imp's Vayne is no matter what happens, he pretty much always ends fights in front of everyone else. He has this impeccable ability to just be in the front line, but generally not die.
He starts the fight, disengages, gets back health because of really good peeling. I mean, that Dandy play was so good and so detrimental for Vulcun, because Dandy got out on really low HP due to a really nice flash. Normal players would disengage, and no, Dandy just turns it around, throws a cocoon, which triggers the Ezreal ulti, because else the Ezreal ulti wouldn't come. Ezreal ulti then hit two people because that one target was in place, which it makes it easier to aim for the second target. And then, yeah, Imp is like, okay, I'll finish this.
And the most impressive thing, I think, is that he's playing against triple globals. He's playing against TF, Shen, and he's up against an Ashe Zyra, which is an incredible kill lane. And he still managed to pull ahead in lane, which is something that really shouldn't be happening. I think Imp played really well. He's almost as good as me on Vayne.
Still.
Go ahead, Garpo, but I'm gonna press you on that.
I just want to point out that what Ozone did was really well. Singed is considered counter against Shen, But they said, well, I'll sacrifice the fact that I'm playing a counter, put Singe in the 2v1 lane just to allow Vayne to farm. And Singe is actually pretty scary against people who are not used to playing against him.
Right.
As a support, you always have that little bit of zone, because when Singe flings you into a tower in a 2v1, it gets really messy, especially when the jungler shows up.
And with Double, with your AD carry expertise, what is it about that laning phase? You know, you said that he did good in lane against Globals. Globals come at 6, so the lane should pretty much be easy. But what else do you have to do in your lane to make sure you're safe?
Well, obviously you have to keep really, because ManCloud got first blood, he should be really far ahead, not only in XP, but just in terms of like how fast he's going to get his items. TF is always a big threat, and that's why you saw Imp go cleanse this game, because there's so much CC. But even though he has cleanse, he's up against Shen, he's up against Jarvan, Ashe, Zyra. There's so much CC that he has to watch out for. So he has to know when he can play aggressive, and when TF is able to port or Jarvan's able to gank him, he needs to know when to play back. And it's really, really impressed with me that he out-CS'd Zuna by so much. Like significantly, like 30 to 40 ahead in the mid game, despite having all these disadvantages thrown at him. And Looper especially, like, it blew my mind that he was 60 CS ahead on the Shen.
The good thing about Vayne is, though, that all he needs is a Blade of Ruin King and a Phantom Dancer, and then he can go into a defensive item. Even though a scaling AD is horrible in a 2v1 composition, as Monte Cristo pointed out earlier, the fact that he had those two items allowed him to go in a QSS, which basically gives him 2 cleanses against his mass CC team, and then he just came out on top.
And we were actually hoping that he would go for Trinity Force, only because he moves so much on move speed. We'll maybe see that at some point in this tournament,
please
the
not.
Trinity Force Vayne.
Trinity Force is so good on
We've
Vayne,
almost
dude.
seen Trinity Force
But,
Varus.
I mean,
It almost
after those
happened.
two
Yeah,
items.
it was close.
After those two items.
But
Ninja Blizz.
to finish off with those team comps as well, I think by the end of it, you saw the inherent risk in the Vulcun composition. We mentioned it a little bit during the pause, how yes, everything's an execution-based team composition, but specifically the Vulcun one required so much precision
And communication.
that if they weren't hitting the right targets, it fell apart. And at that point, by the end of the game, when Looper was farmed and pushing in the base, he was basically taking on 4 people by himself. And that really swung the game over, because once you can't take out a Syndra, the whole team, it doesn't matter.
Final thoughts, Monty?
Yeah, it just becomes even more execution-based given the fact that Ashe was down, right? Because at that point, she's mostly useful for her CC, and it comes down to really ManCloud to take out the targets. So it was really emphasized right there. And if you stack that CC incorrectly or you use it just slightly wrong, really tough to make it out.
All right. Well, with Ozone picking up the win there, let's look at how the Group B standings are shaping up. With their win, they move into a tie with Gambit for the second Group B berth into quarterfinals with 1 game to go.
Conversely, with their loss, Vulcun falls to 4th place. And while they haven't been eliminated from the possibility of 2nd place, they would need to beat Gambit in their next game, and Ozone would also have to lose to Mineski to force a 3-way tie for 2nd.
All right. So earlier today...